Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for joining the Spiritist Talk series promoted by the United States Spiritist Federation every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I am quite happy to be here to host this talk by LUIZ Lima, who will be leading our live with the theme, The Modern Society. I would like to take a brief moment for some announcements. A podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works by Joanna DeAngelis. There is a new episode every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. The weekly talks are based on the works by Joanna DeAngelis and will offer a safe space to confront, compare, correlate, and expand spirituality concepts from a psychological lens, bringing insights, actionable tips, and real-world advice to help you lead a better life. Subscribe to receive notifications of new episodes at the USSF YouTube channel. Also, the USSF is hosting the 17th U.S. Spiritist Symposium on September 30th this year in Portland, Oregon. The symposium will focus on the topic of spiritual path to mental balance, with a full-day program including talks, panels, Q&A sessions, youth panel, kids and youth activities. Please save the date and mark it on your calendar. Note on the screen that there is a QR code. If you want to help the USSF produce more publications and promote Spiritism to everyone, please scan the QR code on your screen for your donation. Now, back to LUIZ Lima. It is so very good to have you with us today. Together with everyone who is watching this live broadcast now, I want to give you very warm welcome. It is so good to have you here to discuss the modern society. Now, I am sure all of you are eager as I am to hear from LUIZ, but before he starts to enlighten us in this hour, please allow me to formally introduce him. LUIZ Lima began his journey in Spiritism in 1990 and continues today. As a serious researcher on the scientific aspect of Spiritism, LUIZ has been facilitating the studies of how to bridge science and Spiritism in both languages, Portuguese and English. Mr. Lima is a renowned lecturer in the Spiritist movement and participates in local and national seminars and events throughout the year. LUIZ Lima holds a degree in electronic engineering and works in the computer network industry. Please take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. LUIZ has reserved time to address your comments and questions once he concludes his presentation. And now, please welcome LUIZ Lima.
Thank you, Bradley, so much. Pleasure to be here talking about the modern society. Wow, society is right now for most people, if you just do a survey and ask around the whole world, everybody thinks it's kind of difficult. So what we are going to talk about today is not related to a place, to a location, to a country, to a state. It's a general set of ideas according to Spiritism, how we should see the place that we live today. So just bear with me. It's not specific to where you are, to where you live. So I'm going to start with Allan Kardec's What is Spiritism? Just a side note, this book was written by him. It's not written by spirits, it's written by him. Because when you can see the date of publication here, 1859, 2 years after the publication of the first book, the Spirits book. And the Spirits book, when he wrote the Spirits book, he started getting letters from different viewers, his different readers. His audience was going to, some of them were complaining, some of them were, just very harsh on him. Some others had questions, some others would just say, I love what you said. It's really nice. So, and he was answering these letters one by one, by hand. There's no computer at the time, so by hand. he had help from his wife, Amélie Boudet. But at one point, it got too difficult to do one by one. So he decided to pile up the letters by subject. Oh, people complaining, people asking questions, and so on and so. So he wrote this book, What is Spiritism, as a general response to all those questions that he was receiving at home. So in one of the items in this book, he's going to, which is item 132, as you see here, he's going to say this: humankind's ills are the consequence of the moral imperfection of incarnate spirits. So moral imperfection through the contact of their vices. This is very interesting. Through the contact of their vices, they make themselves mutually unhappy and punish one another. What this means is my set of vices will interfere with somebody else's set of vices, and vice versa. And that creates a snowball effect. So if you go from our previous incarnations, several incarnations ago, this comes piling up, and we end up in a society where vices are all over the place. And we hurt each other, per se, because that's the point we got. So if you think about coming from life to life to life, each one of us, we are learning, we got questions, and, there's got to be a point where, and this point is different for everyone. It's not the same. There's going to be a point where we're going to make a choice. And we have two choices. One choice is the path of responsibility. What does it mean? It means, well, everything that I lived through, all my experiences and everything, my questions, my revolts, everything, stop. Let's make a list of everything that I have to deal with to make my own life better. And I'm going to look at my choices that I made in the past, so I can make better choices. I'm going to go through a process of moral refinement. But the important thing is, all of this is mine. Bring it over here, put on the table. I'm going to deal with this myself. So I'm bringing everything to myself. I am going to take care of all these things. That's the green path. There's a red path, which is the path of victimization. That's a dangerous path. Victimization means, let's just say that my life is horrible right now, and I hate what's happening, and I'm not happy, and I complain about everything, and look at where I am, look at my situation, and I'm going to blame all of you for putting me in this situation. So for all purposes, from my perception, I am in this horrible situation because of you guys. You did something that took me as far as the place that I am right now. Well, that generates revolt, because now I'm not very happy with you because you did this to me from my perspective, right? And it keeps, in order for this to change, you would have to undo what you did to me, to put me in this situation. When is it going to happen? Never. So it's going to just, it's the snowball effect. It's revolt, more tomorrow than today, more the next day, and more and more and more. And we get to a point where I call moral implosion. That's when we can't deal with us anymore. We just, throw our hands in the air, throw in the towel, and say, that's it. That will lead to dangerous things such as depression, suicide sometimes. It just puts this dark cloud above our heads where nothing is good, and I can't change because you have to change. If you have to change for me to get better, I have to wait for you. So I have to wait for this savior that will come in and take care of things. And I'm just going to wait. I'm going to cross my arms and wait. And I'm going to wait for a very long time because this is not going to happen. So the victimization path, which is a choice, again, is very dangerous. It's not going to bring me any benefit. Now, this is one person. When the whole society does the same, society means It could be a small group, it could be a whole city, it could be a country, it could be the entire humanity. When the whole society does that, it really gets complicated. And that's where we are right now. So in order to better understand how we got into this situation, we have to look into our history. And we're going to look into our history. We're going to make 3 different passes in our history with looking at different things. So let's do a first path. I'm going to take 6 people in humanity throughout the times, and we're going to look at their lives. It doesn't mean that it's only 6 people. It means we're trying to pass a concept. So let's look at the life of Herod the Great, king of Judea. What is he known for? He's known for the fact that at a certain point, he overheard people talking that the new king was coming, and this new king had just been born, and he is the king. So he said, well, this is a threat to my position, to my power, to my situation here. How can I stop? How can I make it not happen? Well, it's very easy. I'm going to eliminate the competition. So that's what he does. He eliminates the competition by ordering that all the kids, the newborn kids, be killed. That would guarantee his staying in power. This is what he did. Now, I want you to look at this from another angle. He was, forget the morality, please, for a minute. He was a great leader. Leader in the sense of ability to gather people and have these people follow him. He was great in terms of talking to governors and putting new buildings together, the infrastructure for the Jews. He was a great leader in the sense, please don't get me wrong, in the sense that the ability to be a leader. Now, morally, that's a whole different story. Let's look at another one. Emperor Nero, which by most historians to this day, he is considered the worst of all in terms of persecution of Christians, and really this a guy who was willing to just get rid of all the Christians. He wanted power, and he was told that the Christians could be on the way. So he decided to kill them all. Now, he was a great leader. He had a tremendous ability to lead people to do what he wanted. He was able to gather all the soldiers and the people within the empire to follow his intentions, to the point that, it was okay for non-Christians to set the city on fire. He was a great leader. Here's another one. Attila, the king of the Huns. The Huns was a set of tribes located on the northern part of the empire, actually outside the Roman Empire. And think about this, the Roman Empire at the time that's where money and power is. And everybody wanted, all these tribes from the north, they were trying to come down, break the barriers to make their way into Rome. And it was very hard in the beginning because the empire was well protected. But as the empire gets, larger and larger, it's difficult to protect the boundaries and the borders. So he was coming down in search for money and power. Now, he was a great leader. How come? Well, he was able to gather a lot of these tribes, and he had a goal, and the goal was to get to Rome. And he said to these people, we have to focus on getting to Rome. So whoever gets on the way, could be a child, an older person, an elderly people, animals, just kill them. Just kill them because they are on my path, literally. That's what he did. So he assassinated a great number of people and destructed a lot of lives. Here's another one, Urban II. Urban II was one of the popes of the Catholic Church. Parenthesis, what is a pope? A pope is a figure in charge of Christianity, still today, right? Whose purpose is to convey the message that Jesus brought with charity, with love, and make sure, things are being taught properly. It's a guy that's going to take all of this throughout and spread throughout the empire. Well, in 1096, the Pope, you can close parentheses now, Pope Urban II decided that he was going to gather 60,000 people, not soldiers, people, to go down to Jerusalem and eliminate all the Islamic population. That's what he did. He was a great leader. He was able to gather 60,000 people to travel days and days and days to Jerusalem to commit, crimes. He was able to do that. Great leader. Here's another one. Closer to our days, Joseph Stalin. Stalin was the one who initiated the communist situation. He created the Soviet Union. No, he was a great leader, so that he was able to do it. Such a great ability to lead, leadership. Now, what was his way of doing this thing? When he raised to power in the first years, he realized that he had a lot of people that would be on the way. Let's just put it this way. It would be on his way to get to where he wanted. So he found out that there was a common thing among these people that were in the way. They were all very well educated. They had university degrees and so and so. So he said, well, these people are going to be a problem for me. So what he said is, he determined that everybody that had and that was well educated should be eliminated. And that's what he did. A great leader, because he got what he wanted. He was able to gather so many people that he created a brand new state of things. And here's the last one. We don't talk about him much because it's so well known, but just think about the ability, leadership. We're talking about leadership, ability to gather millions of people to do what he wanted. He was a great leader. So what we have here is 6 great leaders of our times. Morality is still set aside. They were leaders. So we, throughout time, we had several lives ourselves, several incarnations. So we had to deal with, or had to live with, people like these. Not only these 6, there's several of them. So if we follow these people, or people like these, it would be complicated, because when you get to our times, if we follow this life after life after life, we created the snowball ourselves. So if we look into the leaders that we follow, and you look at society today, August 19th, 2023, question is, did we follow the right leaders throughout all of these lifetimes that we've had? Probably not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in the situation that we are today. There were other leaders teaching us different things, totally different than those 6 and anybody else like them. And we don't pay enough attention, or we didn't pay attention at all to these leaders. The greatest of them being Jesus. So you see, it's not Herod's fault, Nero's fault, Attila's fault. No. It's us. We decided to allow people like this to take us by the hand. And now it got really complicated. Things are not the way they should have been. And now we have to deal with that. So I said in the beginning, we're going to do 3 passes in our history. This is the first pass. Let's do another pass, which is looking at a slightly different thing. Let's go back in time to 3500 BC or even earlier. What did we have in time at that time? We had paganism. You know, what is paganism? You know, the cult to all these mountains and wind and water and everything. We're going to talk about paganism a little more in detail. But that's what it was at the time, paganism. And then at a certain point, around the year 2000 BC, Abraham comes in and shows a different thing. He's going to explain that the wind, the rocks, the rain, the sun, the moon, they are different expressions of the same one God instead of so many gods as previously thought. Now think about this. After Abraham, which is right here represented by the green timeline, it did not kill, it never killed paganism because it's still present to this day. So one did not replace the other. After this, we have Moses with a more established in its roots for Judaism. And the same thing, Judaism comes in and doesn't replace any of the two. Later on, Christianity comes on board and it doesn't replace Judaism. It doesn't replace any of the previous ones. Then we have Islam, which again doesn't replace the others. They're all living together now. And then later on, we have Martin Luther protesting against the things that the church at the time was doing. He opens a brand new avenue of thought and action. And that avenue does not replace any of the previous ones. So all of this so far is very centered on what we today call religion. Now, the problem is religion gets kind of out of hand. With time, we start asking questions to the church and the answers are not coming. For example, if you think about the 1800s, more or less, when just right after Newton, 1800s is where people like Dalton was studying the atoms at the time, and he was very frontal against the church. He was very outspoken. So he would go to the church and say things like this: "You are telling me that the world was created in 6 or 7 days, depends on how you see it, but let's just say 6 days. So the world was created in 6 days. And you're telling me that there's no evolution. The man was started as a man, monkeys as monkeys, dogs as dogs. So what day was the giraffe created?" He was asking that to the church, and the church didn't have an answer. But he brought this interest in the population to start asking questions, although they were not allowed to. But the answer from the church was always the same: this is not something you should ask. Instead of answering the question, they would say, this is not something you should ask. So the church became very uncomfortable with people like him. But things changed in 1859, when the works of Charles Darwin will start to bring new answers to these questions that we had for centuries and centuries. So things start to change. So the answer will come from, as of then, will come from a different provider of the truth. The provider of the truth before Darwin was the church. You wouldn't know it. You wanted to know something, go to the church. After Charles Darwin and his book, The Origin of the Species, science became the new provider of the truth, and it still is. However, science does not take into consideration anything spiritual. Soul, spirit, religion, nothing like this. It's totally separate. However, science took over from the church. And then in 1953, we had another input to all of this. James Watson and Francis Crick, right here in New York, discovered the structure of the DNA molecule. And it was a beautiful discovery. So, but it had consequences, because they assumed, in order to present their work and their thesis and what they had found, they proposed something. They made an assumption. That assumption had a name. They named this. It was named by them. It's called Central Dogma of the Molecular Biology. That's a name, dogma. What this says is, we are born with a certain set of genes. They cannot be changed. Cannot be changed. That's what it is. So in 1953, we bought the idea of this being correct. However, we knew at the time that genes were not only responsible for the color of my skin, the color of my hair, and a lot of other physical characteristics. It's also responsible for things like behavior, aggressiveness, impatience. So if genes cannot be changed, and I am a very aggressive person, it means I was born very aggressive, and I will express all this aggressiveness to the last day, and it cannot be changed. If it cannot be changed, I don't have to do anything. It's useless to make any sort of effort to be different, because it can be changed. That is called victimization. We threw away responsibility here. So as of now, I am aggressive. I'm not responsible for it anymore. You go talk to my father and mother. They are the ones responsible, not me. So all of these lines that you see here, these timelines from top to bottom, none of them replace the previous ones. We are still living all of these things. So what happens is a complicated, distorted society in which materialism took over from spiritual affairs, soul, anything in that sense. So we have a society that is very competitive and very complicated. Again, everywhere. It's not in your city, it's not in your neighborhood, it's not in your country. It is just about everywhere. So, Spirit Viana de Carvalho, which uses Divaldo Franco as a medium, he's going to explain something beautifully to us. This is what it says. Let's go back. This is exactly what it says. Go back with me, 3,000 BC. What we have is paganism. We mentioned that before. What exactly is paganism? Well, you have objects of idolatry: the sun, the moon, earth, wind, the mountain, everything, rocks. So you have these objects of idolatry. And in order to sustain that idolatry, they created, or paganism uses rituals, gatherings, and parties to sustain those things. And it implies in making sacrifices or submit to the gods, divinities, deities, whatever it is. This is paganism. Then he says, okay, come back to today. Come back to today. What we have is about the same thing. Today we have objects of idolatry. We have rituals, and we do sacrifices. However, they're not the same. We don't do idolatry towards the moon and the sun and the earth anymore. The objects of idolatry are 5 main ones: money, power, sex, drugs, and weapons. For this, to sustain these objects of idolatry, we implemented and sustain rituals. And we do sacrifices. We sacrifice ourselves towards the ability to, put our hands on money and power, especially money and power. So Viana de Carvalho spirit, he tells us, this, the new situation, is what he calls neo-paganism. Neo-paganism. So, where is morality here? There is no morality here. In neo-paganism, what changed is the objects of idolatry. So he says it's interesting because neo-paganism will take us to 3 different paths. First path, moral bankruptcy, because there is no morality. It's not necessary in paganism. Remember, paganism was about sacrifices. You have to sacrifice. Whatever it is, an animal, a person, there is no moral standard. So moral bankruptcy, it's one of the consequences of neo-paganism. Second consequence, material immortality. I love the way he uses this. Material immortality, what does it mean? Think about that you are the most materialistic person possible. There's only matter, no spirit, no anything, nothing. On the last day you die and that's it, nothing else. So it all comes down to acquiring things, having things, possessions. So let's say, for the sake of the argument, let's say that all possessions in the world are the size of your desk. That's it. So on your desk, you have all the matter that is possible to be acquired right there. So you're happy because you have it all, 100%. You have 100%, so you're all happy. And then suddenly somebody goes to the very tip of your table and chips the table, takes a little tiny piece of your table. You don't care so much. But then a second person does the same thing. A third person does the same thing. There's going to be a point where you put your hands in the air and say, hey, hold on. I'm going to be unhappy this way because I had it all. I was all happy. And now there are some people that are challenging me. So people like this, they don't see that dying will not matter. So what they do is, in order to preserve what they call material immortality, they eliminate the competition. Eliminate the competition. So nobody's going to chip my table anymore. And I'm still going to be all happy 100%. And the third consequence is what he calls spiritual strabismus. Strabismus is that condition in the eye where it's very hard to see things. So you have to look to one side, then you miss what's going on the other side. Examples of spiritual strabismus. Abortion. Abortion is very arguable in our society. Okay, some people are okay with that, some people are not. So when there are situations where abortion gets more out in the news, it will be in the news for, let's say, a week, maybe 2, and then it dies out. Nobody talks about it anymore until the next event, and it goes back into the news. So in between, the first and the second set of news, it's still happening, but we don't look at it. We kind of put in the back burner. That's what spiritual strabismus is. Death penalty, same thing. When somebody, is put to the death penalty somewhere, the whole thing comes up. It makes into the news and so and so and so. And what happens? The person dies and we don't talk about it for another year, maybe 10 years, until the next one goes to serve the death row. So with this neo-paganism, these 3 things will create new values in our society, but they are fake values because they're not really values. And what are they? One, everybody does. Everybody does. Oh, yeah, so I'm allowed to do that too. No, you're not. If there's morality, no. If morality is set aside, is forgotten, that's a whole different animal. Everybody does is what our society goes by today, in most places. Here's another one. All of us in general, when we do things, we try to do the best we can, the best to our abilities. That's just natural to us. However, if there is no morality, we will do whatever it takes to get to our goals. For example, here's a very simple thing. Let me say that I'm a very successful manufacturer of pens, for example. Then, I make it better every day. I research and I produce better products. And let's just say that I reached I'm now the third best pen manufacturer in the world. But I wanted to be the first. Everybody would want it to be the first. However, the second and the first, they're way ahead of me. There's no way that I'm going to make it. So how can I be the best? With neo-paganism, eliminate the competition. Just eliminate the competition. So automatically, when I eliminate the first, I eliminate the second, I automatically become the first. Here's another thing. Possessing more than others became important, became something that we wanted to live, having possessions more than others and showing these others that I have more than they have. Neo-paganism, and here's another one. Expression of superiority. I'm going to express myself as being better than you are, much better. And at the top of expression of superiority is bullying, where I'm so much better that, I'm going to do what bullying does. This is absolutely awful. This is awful. But that's what Spirit Viana de Carvalho tells us. Let's do a third pass on our history. Let's bring 4 events on history. Number 1, Jesus and Barabbas. What happened here? Jesus is taken to Pontius Pilate. And by the way, Pontius Pilate knows he has no reason to be there. He knows, and he tries by all means to avoid the worst. So he talks and asks the population and tries to convince. He's not getting anywhere. So he has this brilliant, from his perspective, brilliant idea of bringing Barabbas, which is a known, well-known criminal, in jail, already in jail. And he tells the population, this is what he's thinking. I'm going to ask the population. I'm going to give you the opportunity to choose one of them to die and the other walks free. And he says, well, of course, they're going to vote for Barabbas to be killed. And Jesus walks out free. It kind of didn't happen this way. However, all the time, he knew that Jesus was not supposed to be there. And then we think about this, well, that was 2,000 years ago. This is not going to happen again. Bring this to your personal history. Bring this to your personal history. How many times, let's just ask this, how many times in a year do we do the wrong thing knowing what the right is? And every time we do this, we're signing off our actions as Pontius Pilate. So, in theory, this happens every day with almost everyone. So we are still sending Jesus to the cross every day. It still happens. It happened then as a physical event. It happens now as a moral circumstance. Here's another event in history. We briefly talked about this, the Pope, Urban II, and the Crusades. So we present a military Jesus in the Crusades, where the idea is to just kill everybody that we think should be killed. And the reason for that, for the Crusades, was the Pope thought or considered that the Islamic population had destroyed the cross where Jesus was suffered the crucifixion in Jerusalem. So they were going to go after the Islamic population to kill them as a retaliation. Very interesting. 1,000 years ago, 1,000 and some years ago. Don't we do the same thing today? When we think that somebody did something, we think, I'm not saying they did, we think they did. Now think about this, the entire population, the entire Islamic population at the time was killed because some of them, maybe 5 or 6, destroyed the cross, if they did. So look at the disaster. People who had nothing to do with this are paying for this crusades. And we do the same thing today, morally. We don't like what things are or what's happening, so we're going to destroy everybody. We're going to do everything to destroy everybody that is supposedly in the way, and it's not. This is just my perception. It's victimization. Number 3, the Inquisition. Awful, awful, awful. What is the Inquisition in simple words? In 2 phrases, right? I am right. You follow what I tell you. If you don't, you're going to be set on fire. That's Inquisition. Do we do this today? Do we do this today? If that person doesn't do what I want, he's going to pay for it. So we are still the great inquisitors. We still do this several times a year, maybe a week. We're not going to get into that, but we are still the great inquisitors. And this that we mentioned before, same thing. In the very beginning, when Hitler goes into power, he had an idea that was different, way different than what it came out to be years later. So he started something that he had no idea where it was going to take us and them, the soldiers and the entire population, the world. Don't we do this every day? Don't we talk bad about somebody who is close to us to somebody else who is not? So that somebody else will tell B, who tells C, who tells D, who knows my friend and comes back to me, and my friend comes back to my face and said, did you say this about me? We never thought about it. Unforeseeable consequences. We still do this. We still talk bad about people close to us, even people that we love sometimes. So that explains a lot. That explains why our society is in such a complicated situation. In terms of morality, we have moral values that were first presented to us on a hard tablet by Moses. 10 commandments. Let's start from here. So I'm just going to take one as an example. Don't kill. So Moses comes down with the tablet, presents to the population, not presents, he tells the population, as of now, you cannot kill. The population is not going to understand that, because for them, killing is a daily thing. You and I are talking. We get into some sort of argument. It's not getting nice. You know, I'm just going to get my sword, run through your body, and that's it, done. Let me talk to somebody else now. Somebody else is going to do the same thing for me. So killing is not really a problem before all of this, way back in time. So Moses comes down and says, you can't kill now. People will not obey because it doesn't make sense to them. So Moses had to add a set of disciplinary laws that we today call social laws. These are disciplinary laws that will sustain the moral values by making people understand they got to change. They can't do that anymore. So in today's world, for example, one of the moral values is still don't kill. A social law would be something like this. Don't kill. If you kill, you go to jail. That's a social law. And the social law is different for different people, different countries, different places. But, you know, they are disciplinary laws to sustain the moral value. That will make me or force me to change my attitude. So today, I'm talking to somebody. We get into an argument. It's getting, thing is getting difficult. I'm not going to kill that person anymore because I'm going to change my attitude, because if I kill, I'm going to have to be put in jail, because that's what the social law is, the disciplinary law is. So I change my attitude. I no longer run the sword or kill somebody because of that. That's the purpose of the social law. Now, however, let's just say that I am a very, very, very influential person in my society. Very influential. Top. And I kill somebody because I lost my temper, I couldn't take it, and I just killed that person. Well, by all means, I should be put in jail. However, I'm a very top influential person in my society. So I'm going to propose, and I have the power to do this. I will make it happen because I have all that much power within my society. I will propose, because of my attitude, a change in the law. And that change will now be something like this. You can't kill. If you kill, you go to jail. But it's your first crime. You're not going to go to jail anymore. Look at this. And then if the first crime doesn't do it, I'm going to propose the first crime, because when I commit the second crime, then there's no way I got to go to jail. No, I'm going to change the law again, and I say, no, I need a second chance. I need a second instance in my, legal process here. So I'm going to be convicted in first instance, but not on second. And it goes on and on. So we adjust the disciplinary laws to follow our attitudes. That creates false moral values that drive our society. Society goes by. That's the everybody does. So if we come down from the left side, from the moral values to the attitudes, we're in good hands. We're following, we are abiding, we are in line with the laws of God. However, if we decide to go up the right side, I am going against the laws, and there will be consequences. There will be consequences. So if you think about this middle here, that's where the problem is. That's where the problem is. So because of the middle, we converted our divine connection into the cloud. That's the cloud above our heads. We changed everything by manipulating the middle box that you see on the screen. We changed everything. And now we have the cloud on our heads. And we have to live with that. We have to live with it. We're going to have to face that. So we changed collaboration, and now it's competition. We exchanged love for hatred. And it goes on and on. Humility is now pride, and on and on and on. Honesty is now dishonesty. So we changed the society values. So our current societies, the modern societies in general, they are driven by values that are not really moral values. They are everybody does kind of values. And it became really difficult. We would have to go back in time and find out where we got it wrong. So, in order to do this, if we look at all the systems in our societies, I'm listing just 6 here. It's a concept, so it's all the same for all of them. Let's take the first one, politics. How does it all start? It starts way back in time, most likely in ancient Greece, where what we have are separate tribes that are gathering now, because these people are nomads. They are walking, and then a tribe is walking in search of food and water, and they meet another tribe, and they'll say, oh, you're here, yeah, we've been here, yeah. So they got together. So these tribes, these tiny societies, if you will, right, or groups, they will gather together. So the population, the number of people becomes relatively large at a point, and it becomes complicated because different people want different things. So it's very easy to disorganize the society. So what we do is we stop and say, hold on, we need to organize our society. Let's do this. Let's take some of us that belong to the society, and we are going to elect these people to keep the society organized. They'll look for things in the future. They will look for applying laws, and they will look for things that will make the society evolve in an organized way. That's how we elect or elected in the past politicians, the political system. Now, if you're going to take a certain number of people out of the society to place them in charge of the society, which ones are you going to choose? The ones with the best moral values or the ones with the worst moral values? The ones with the best moral values. And it is the same for all these other systems that you see on the screen. So everything is fine. Everything started with a very clear idea that we need people with high standards, high moral standards, to drive the society, to organize the society, keep it intact, and so on and so on and so on. However, when you look at August 19th, 2023, we go back in time and say, what was politics originally based on, or technology, or maybe healthcare system? And you look at it, it's blurry. It's blurry. I can't tell anymore. I don't know what it's based on. It disappeared. We can't trace it back. We can almost not trace it back. So these systems are standing on nothing right now. So they will disappear. They will implode, all of them. And some of them are already, in a certain way, more or less. Everything is going off tracks because the modern society is lacking morality. And that's where Spiritism comes in place. What is Spiritism? Spiritism is a body of knowledge that's going to teach us how and why to raise our moral standards, so we can be better people, each one of us, and in group we can be a better society. Spiritism is a great tool, that will give us the ability to do that sooner or later. When? It depends on me, it depends on you, it depends on all of us. Thank you very much. We're standing by for possible questions, if any, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Luis, for the wonderful reflections and information that you provided us today. We are now open for comments and questions. from the audience. And the first is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. So, is Earth a school for fraternity or a regenerative prison?
Yeah, Earth is a school, also a hospital, because, you know, morally we are sick. So we need a place to be healed, to be able to rework our wrongdoings, if you will. Look at the past, look our past choices, and understand that these wrongdoings, these wrong past choices, led us to where we are today. So yes, Earth is a school for fraternity, because that's what's going to take us away from where we are. Fraternity, charity, love, all these good things that Jesus tried to teach. He taught. Now, if we took the lesson home, that's a whole different story, because it's a personal choice. But yes, it is. The Earth is one of the planets for spirits undergoing trials and expiations. And that's the stage that we are, trials and expiations. We have to go through all these, all this process that will make us look at our past, identify the errors, the problems, the wrongdoings, and not do them again. Stop being Pontius Pilate. Stop being the great inquisitor. Stop being Urban II, and so and so.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Luis. So our next is from the United States Spiritist Federation. How can we use Spiritism to keep our sacrifices from being too material and still have what we need?
Yeah, I think Spiritism, one of the great books, which is one of the books in the codification, is the book Heaven and Hell. It's a very interesting book, has two parts, but one of the parts is a full-blown transcript of interviews with discarnate spirits that would show up in medium mystic meetings where Allan Kardec was participating with the mediums and so. And when you look at these transcripts, it's like you're asking in discarnate spirits, you're asking them, and they're telling us their answer. Some of these spirits are suffering because they did a lot of mistakes in their lifetimes. They did a lot of wrong things, and they will tell us, you know, some of them will tell us, especially the ones who are very attached to material things. He said, I was trying to live a material life. Now I'm here and I see, you know, my big mistake. I threw out my opportunity to be better. Now I'm suffering here. I'm going to have to go back and suffer the same thing again. We start from the same point because I didn't advance on anything. I didn't try to be better in terms of, you know, a fraternal soul, this charitable soul. I didn't do any of that. And I'm going to have to, I'm paying for it. I'm suffering, and I'm going to have to go back in and do this. So we have this information. We don't have to go through it to make sure this is what's going to happen. We already have the information. We already know. We have testimonies from all these spirits that we're doing what some of us are doing now.
Okay, good to know. So we have another question from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. Why is it taking so long for humans to begin their journey of self-knowledge?
It's a very interesting question. In the Spirit's book, Allan Kardec presents something that was known as the Spirit Scale, where it's an idea, it's between questions 100 and 113. The idea is to group spirits by their level of evolution being moral and intellectual. So we have the bottom of the scale, which it's called impure spirits. The top of the scale is called pure spirits, and everything in between. The lower you are on the scale, the less evolved you are. So if you're close to the bottom of the scale, it's hard to change. As you go up, it becomes more reasonable to change. So why is it taking so long? Because the Earth, as a planet of trials and expiations, houses spirits in the lower part of the scale. Spirits that are still, you know, in the very beginning of their, in the spiritual infancy, that's what we call actually. And it will take time. It will take time for them to realize that, hold on, I'm tired. I'm tired. Isn't there anything different? And that will be the point where the search for anything different, for something different, will start. So it takes time. Yes, it takes time because it's trial and error. It's a lot of trial and error. Now, the problem with the spiritual infancy is the trial and error is identifying there was an error. That's where the time is. I can do something and realizing anything, not even spiritually, I can do something and realizing one day that I made a mistake. So now I'm going to search for something different, a different outcome, for a different outcome. But if I do not identify in one day, if it takes me 10 years to identify, I'm not going to do anything different in 10 years until it clicks one day. Oh, I got it. I got it. So it's different for everyone. However, most of us are on the bottom of the scale. So you will take time to realize that we're not doing the right thing. One of the ways to realize is looking at the history. That's what we try to do today. 3 different views in history. And the other is knowledge. Reading. Spiritism has a million books about it. And just make sure that you understand everything that is being read.
Good insights and very helpful. So we have a question from the United States Spiritist Federation. Can we change the way we think, our desires and wants within our earthly lifetime?
Look at Paul. Look at Paul. That's what he did in one lifetime, from Saul to Paul. We are all Sauls now. We can all be Paul? Yes, we can. Is it easy? Not at all. Most of us, the great majority, will not be able to do it in a lifetime. It doesn't mean that it's not possible. It's a combination of things. Knowledge that we are provided with from Spiritism, even history, historical facts, and a willingness to do this, meaning willingness to love. So we can stay in the cloud, or we can reattach the divine connection, or we can leave the cloud above our heads.
Good advice. So we have another question from the TVCEI International Spiritist Council. Will humankind need some form of religious innovation to hasten this process of spiritual enlightenment?
Well, then we go back to the situation with the word religious. Right? Religion can be 2 things. Can be organized religion, and we have 41,000 denominations of Christianity. I'm going to say that again. We have 41,000 denominations of Christianity, and they are all organized religion. Spiritism is not organized religion in the sense that what is organized religion? You have a sacred book. Whatever is in there cannot be discussed or argued or talked about. That's it. We have priests and rituals. We don't have any of these things. So religious innovation, if religious innovation means bring another organized religion, not necessarily it's going to help, because it's ideas brought in by a group, by maybe one person. What we need is really spiritual enlightenment. That's where we want to go to. But then we need input into the souls, not into the head. Organized religion, it comes first from the head. It doesn't reach the soul. That's why so many people revolt against some organized religion and say, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm walking out because it doesn't make sense. So we have to have faith with reasoning. Faith with reason. Faith that we are able to, that we will get help from above to do it. But with reason, not victimization. Reason, responsibility. I have to do something. Crossing the arms and sitting here in the chair is not going to make me go anywhere.
Faith with reason. It's a good thing to think about. We have a comment from Yasko Arakawa. Hi, LUIZ. Great talk. For those individuals and groups that do not believe in reincarnation and immortality, what argument may we use to enhance their sense of fraternal righteousness? Thanks.
Yeah, the arguments. So if they don't believe in any of that, there are two people who don't believe in immortality or reincarnation. First is materialists. They don't believe in anything like that. The second is some parts of spiritualism. They believe in immortality, but not reincarnation, which is different. Immortality could, you die, your soul lives forever, but not necessarily you reincarnate. So there are two things here. For the materialist, what's difficult is they question the very source of everything, which is God. And their argument is awful. Their argument is, think of a war. This is what they say, right? It's not me. I'm repeating their ideas. Think of a war. Or a crime. Think of a crime. Simple crime. Somebody shot somebody. On that place, on that moment, God was not there. That's their argument. Because you tell me God is love. In that moment, there was no love, so God is not there. So God does not exist. That's their argument. And this is because it's a binary approach to the situation. Either there is God or there isn't. When it's not this, God is not physically present. Remember, for a materialist, it's physical or it doesn't exist. So if God doesn't show the face, show its face, it doesn't exist for them. And that's where it got wrong. So what's wrong is the idea that they use as a source for reasoning and think. Changing the source of reasoning on anybody, so on any subject, isn't easy. I think the way to do this is discussing. First of all, the person has to have the interest. If they're not ready, if it's not their moment, forget it. We're just going to be, talking to the walls. They have to be ready. There was a time when you and I were not ready for this. There was a time many lives ago that you here watching me and myself, we were not ready for this thing. We were given the opportunity to wait for our time to be ready. Now that we are ready, we understand this. So a lot of times what we want to do is just buy 10 sets of Spiritist codification and give it away to 10 people. It doesn't necessarily help anything. It's about talking to these people. It's about especially showing them with our actions, not words, who we are. You see, a lot of times what happens is you go to your work environment and you are a Spiritist, the others are not. Each one has their own belief system. So sometimes somebody's going to come to you and say, I wanted to talk to you. Can you give me 5 minutes here in the corner? Yeah, what is it? You're so different. You don't get upset with this. You act differently here and there. You see, this is the action, calling them for reasoning. Calling them for reasoning. So the eye for an eye, it's not necessarily the only solution. Think there are other solutions. I use the second solution. I don't use the eye for an eye. It's our actions that will trigger in them the I would say the idea of maybe there's something different, but it is difficult. Only our actions are going to, put them on a different compass.
Okay. Thank you for that, LUIZ. And we have another question from the United States Spiritist Federation. Mm-hmm. Even if I make changes in my morality, how can I live day to day in a world that can be disruptive?
The world can be disruptive because of the moral standards that we are living. Jesus didn't get disrupted by anything. So didn't Paul. they see things being destroyed. Of course, Jesus is looking as a physical man. He would look around and see people, killing each other and so and so. But not him. Didn't affect him. Paul. So we think it's disruptive. All of us, most of us, because of the level of morality that we are in. We are low on the scale, so we only look at things that are compatible with being lower on the scale. For example, unconditional love, it's not in the bottom of the scale, so we can't see it. We can't see it. We can't do it. Unconditional love, it's something that we know, but we can't sustain. For example, when you have a young kid, for example, let's say 2 years old, right? And you did something, or you tell them not to do this, and they got mad. They don't like your answer. They don't like your thing. They will get their fist like this, come to you and try to hit you on your legs, and you're standing much taller than they are. They hit you like, I hate you, that kind of thing that kids do. Are you gonna say back, and I hate you? Let me get my gloves and we're gonna fight here? No. You pick them up. They're crying. They're desperate. You pick them up. You put them against your chest, and you hold them for 2 or 3 minutes. During those 2 or 3 minutes, there is no bill to pay. There is no bad neighbor. There is no difficult relative. There is no war. Nothing like this. That is unconditional love. But we can only sustain for 2 minutes every 10 years. We can't do this on a continuous basis, because then we get out of those 2 minutes. We go back to the bottom of the scale, looking at a disruptive world.
Understandable. Thank you, Luis. And we have a wonderful comment from the BA6 Center. Awesome presentation, Luis. Obrigado.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And we have another comment from Claudia Nunes. Luis is like a good wine. His mind and interpretations need to be savored, and it just gets better with time. Wonderful.
Thank you, Claudia.
So thank you very, very much, Luis, for what you provide today. And thanks to everyone who watched today's talk live, and those who have been following the weekly Spiritist Talk series. Next Saturday, August 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, don't miss our next live when Joaquin Eleuterio will be discussing Honor Thy Father and Mother. Luis, before we close the live today, would you please provide a prayer?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So let's concentrate on the image of Jesus and thank him for the opportunity that we are having here on this planet, on this life, to correct our wrongdoings by helping others as well. That Jesus, that your light can be spread out through prisons and those who are incarcerated. Many of them don't even understand why they are in revolt state, that your light and your fluids can reach their hearts so they can be, they can feel that they are, they will be better one day. Same for those in hospitals, in hospital beds being treated, that they can be, that they can use their time to think about their lives, past wrongdoings, that when they are out, they can resolve or start resolving their questions and situations. Thank you, Jesus, once again for this opportunity, and stay with us. Thanks so much. So be it.
Thank you, and may everyone have a calming and mindful weekend.